A single traffic light changed one young man's entire future. With only minutes left before the most important meeting of his life, a nervous intern sprinted toward the towering office building where executives were already waiting. Then, on the edge of the crowded crosswalk, an elderly man with a trembling cane quietly asked for help crossing the street. Hundreds of people rushed past without slowing down. The intern froze, glanced at his watch, and made a decision that seemed certain to destroy his career. By the time the afternoon sun reached its highest point, he would lose something he had spent years chasing, but gain something he never imagined could be waiting on the other side of one simple act of kindness. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us the greatest opportunities often arrive disguised as ordinary moments. Nolan Mercer had dreamed of working for Ashford and Pierce Engineering ever since he was a teenager. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, he had watched his mother work 2 jobs while his father repaired small appliances in their garage to keep food on the table. Money was always limited, but encouragement was never scarce. His parents taught him that character would always outlast talent, and that success achieved without compassion eventually became failure wearing expensive clothes. After graduating at the top of his engineering class, Nolan finally earned a 3-month internship at the prestigious company. It was the kind of opportunity thousands of graduates competed for every year. Only one intern would receive a permanent position. For weeks, Nolan arrived before sunrise, stayed long after everyone else left, and volunteered for every difficult assignment. His supervisors admired his technical skills, but the final decision would depend on one presentation before the company's executive board. That presentation was scheduled for a bright Tuesday morning. Everything had been planned perfectly. Until it wasn't. A traffic accident several blocks away brought public transportation to a standstill. Nolan stepped off the bus and began running the remaining distance through busy downtown streets. Every passing minute tightened the knot inside his stomach. He checked his watch repeatedly, calculating that if he hurried, he might still arrive just before the presentation began. As he approached one of the city's busiest intersections, the pedestrian signal changed. Crowds surged forward. Standing alone beside the crosswalk was an elderly gentleman wearing a neatly pressed gray coat. His silver hair moved gently in the breeze, and one hand rested uncertainly on a wooden cane. The traffic seemed to overwhelm him. He looked toward the rushing crowd with quiet hesitation before softly asking whether someone could help him cross. Most people never even looked up. Phones remained in their hands. Coffee cups stayed balanced. Meetings mattered. Schedules mattered. Someone else would surely stop. Nolan looked toward the office tower rising only 2 blocks away. Then back toward the elderly man. His heart pounded. Every instinct told him to keep running. Instead, he walked back. He offered his arm. The elderly man accepted with grateful eyes. Together they crossed slowly while impatient traffic waited. The man apologized repeatedly for delaying him. Nolan simply smiled and assured him that everyone needed help sometimes. Once safely across the street, the older gentleman thanked him warmly. Before leaving, he quietly said something Nolan wouldn't understand until much later. The world rarely remembers the people who arrived first. It always remembers the people who stopped. Nolan nodded politely before sprinting toward the office building. He arrived nearly 15 minutes late. The presentation had already ended. The conference room doors stood open. Executives slowly gathered their papers. His supervisor looked deeply disappointed. Nolan apologized sincerely and explained what had happened. Several managers exchanged sympathetic glances. Others remained silent. One executive calmly informed him that professional opportunities demanded punctuality regardless of circumstances. Another candidate had delivered an excellent presentation in his absence. Although everyone appreciated his honesty, company policy required fairness. The meeting had continued without him. Nolan accepted responsibility without arguing. He knew the company owed him nothing. Walking back to his desk, disappointment settled heavily across his shoulders. Months of effort appeared to have vanished because of one decision at one crosswalk. Still, he couldn't bring himself to regret helping the old man. That afternoon he quietly packed his notes, convinced his internship had effectively ended. The following morning, something unexpected happened. His supervisor asked him to report to the executive conference room. Assuming final paperwork awaited him, Nolan entered with quiet dignity. Instead, every senior executive sat waiting. At the far end of the table sat the elderly man from the crosswalk. Only now he wasn't carrying a shopping bag. He wore an elegant suit. The room fell completely silent. The chairman smiled warmly. He introduced the elderly gentleman as Theodore Ellsworth, the retired founder of Ashford and Pierce Engineering. Although officially retired several years earlier, Theodore still served as honorary chairman and occasionally evaluated company culture in unusual ways. Every year, without announcing his identity, he spent several mornings walking through the city surrounding company headquarters. He wasn't testing intelligence. He wasn't testing ambition. He was searching for kindness. Theodore explained that dozens of interns had passed him during previous years. Some apologized while hurrying away. Others pretended not to hear. Several looked directly at him before continuing across the street. Only Nolan stopped. The executives listened quietly. Theodore continued. Technical excellence could always be taught. Leadership could be developed. Experience came with time. But genuine compassion, demonstrated when nobody expected recognition, revealed something far more valuable. Nolan stood speechless. He hadn't helped because he expected reward. He honestly believed he had sacrificed his future. Theodore smiled. He admitted that arriving late still carried consequences. Responsibility mattered. But so did perspective. The company needed engineers capable of remembering that every blueprint ultimately existed to improve human lives. Numbers without humanity built impressive structures. Character built meaningful legacies. Instead of canceling the evaluation, the executive board invited Nolan to deliver his presentation immediately. Although surprised, he gathered himself. He spoke not only about engineering solutions but also about designing neighborhoods where elderly residents could safely navigate streets, where children could play securely, and where accessibility remained as important as efficiency. The room remained unusually quiet throughout his presentation. When he finished, no one immediately spoke. Finally Theodore applauded. Soon every executive joined him. Later that afternoon, Nolan learned he had earned the permanent position. Yet the promotion became only the beginning. Over the following months, Theodore personally mentored him despite officially being retired. Their conversations rarely focused solely on engineering. Instead, they discussed responsibility, humility, family, service, and the invisible impact small decisions leave behind. Theodore often shared stories from the company's earliest years. When he founded the business decades earlier, he possessed little more than determination and borrowed tools. During one particularly difficult season, a stranger had quietly paid for repairs to Theodore's broken truck after discovering he couldn't afford them. That anonymous kindness allowed him to finish an important construction contract. Without that stranger, the company might never have existed. Theodore never discovered the person's name. Instead, he spent his entire career trying to repay the debt by helping others whenever possible. Nolan listened carefully. He realized successful people often remembered kindness longer than profits. Several months later, Ashford and Pierce received proposals for a massive downtown redevelopment project. Competing companies emphasized luxury towers and expensive commercial spaces. Nolan proposed something different. His design included wider sidewalks, safer pedestrian crossings, wheelchair-friendly entrances, public gardens, shaded seating for elderly residents, and playgrounds connecting neighborhoods often separated by busy roads. Some investors initially criticized the plan. They argued these features reduced potential profits. Theodore quietly defended Nolan. He reminded everyone the company's greatest projects had never been measured only by financial returns. Communities deserve thoughtful design. Eventually the proposal won unanimous approval. Construction began beneath clear daytime skies filled with hope. As the project progressed, local residents frequently visited to thank workers for considering ordinary families instead of focusing exclusively on impressive buildings. Parents appreciated safer crossings. Retirees welcomed additional benches. Children laughed inside parks previously absent from the neighborhood. One afternoon, while inspecting progress, Nolan noticed an elderly woman carefully navigating a newly completed crosswalk. She smiled after reaching the opposite sidewalk. She never realized the young engineer watching nearby had designed that crossing because of one unforgettable morning helping a stranger. Years continued passing. Nolan rose through leadership positions while remaining exactly the same person coworkers first met. He still arrived early. Still volunteered for difficult assignments. Still carried heavy boxes for maintenance staff. Still remembered birthdays of receptionists and custodians. People respected his title. They admired his character even more. Meanwhile, Theodore's health slowly declined. Although age reduced his strength, his optimism never faded. During one sunny afternoon, he invited Nolan to visit a small community park the company had recently completed. Children played happily nearby while grandparents relaxed beneath large oak trees. Theodore quietly admitted this would likely be one of his final visits to a company project. He wasn't afraid. He felt grateful. Looking across the park, he reminded Nolan that buildings eventually age, businesses change, and careers end. Only the kindness invested inside them continues growing through generations. Several weeks later, Theodore peacefully passed away. The company held a daytime memorial attended by employees, city leaders, construction workers, architects, and countless families whose lives he had influenced. Rather than displaying financial achievements, the memorial showcased photographs of schools, hospitals, parks, bridges, libraries, and neighborhoods improved through Theodore's lifelong belief that success existed to serve people. Near the entrance stood one simple framed sentence. The world rarely remembers the people who arrived first. It always remembers the people who stopped. Nolan quietly smiled through tears. He understood those words better than ever. Years later he became the company's chief executive. On his first day in the role, he introduced a new tradition. Every incoming intern spent one afternoon volunteering within the community before beginning technical training. Some helped renovate schools. Others served meals at community centers. Many assisted elderly residents with home repairs. When questioned about the unusual orientation program, Nolan answered simply, "Engineering begins with understanding people. Everything else comes afterward." The program gradually became one of the company's defining traditions. Graduates often claimed that single afternoon taught them more about leadership than months inside conference rooms. Before we reach the end of this journey, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether you would have stopped to help the elderly man even if it meant risking the opportunity you had worked your entire life to achieve, or tell us about a moment when one small act of kindness unexpectedly changed your future. Many years later, people walking through the beautiful neighborhoods designed by Ashford and Pierce admired the welcoming parks, safe crossings, shaded walkways, and thoughtfully built public spaces without realizing those ideas began at one ordinary intersection where a nervous intern chose compassion over convenience. Nolan never considered helping the elderly man a sacrifice anymore. He saw it as the moment he finally understood what true success looked like. Careers may begin with talent, opportunities may come through hard work, but the legacy we leave behind will always be shaped by the moments when we choose another person's well-being over our own comfort. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that the smallest act of kindness, offered without expecting recognition, may become the very reason someone else's future, and even our own, takes a beautiful new direction.